All right. Hello and welcome to the Newsmax Daily for Thursday, July 25th, 2024, the fourth and final Thursday of the month already. August 1st is a week from today, and 5 months from today will be Christmas Day. July 25th is National Intern Day. Kudos to you if you're an intern. Today's your day. And National Chili Dog Day. Hell yeah. Let's have the intern go get some chili dogs. If you eat one, it'll take 3 years off of your life. Or is it 3 hours? Have you read those stories? And who can eat just one chili dog, right? Topping the headlines this Thursday, NORAD says it sent out U.S. and Canadian fighter jets to intercept 2 Russian bombers and 2 Chinese bombers off the coast of Alaska last night, ahead of President Biden's address from the Oval Office. What were they doing? We don't know. Is it unusual for Russian jets to be flying in U.S. airspace off the coast of Alaska? Not really. It happens from time to time. But Russian and Chinese bombers together? I would think that's a little unusual. The official notice from NORAD this morning says it was not seen as a direct threat. We'll see how John Kirby also downplays it in today's White House press briefing. Russia and China are absolutely becoming closer and closer and working together, and that is not a good thing. I don't care what the Pentagon or the White House says. It is and should be very concerning. As you know, President Biden did address the nation last night from the Oval Office about his decision to step down as the party's presidential nominee.
I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union, it's not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people.
Former President Donald Trump addressed tens of thousands of supporters in North Carolina, his first rally since President Biden stepped down as the Democrats' nominee.
As you know, 3 days ago, we officially defeated the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. He quit because he was losing so badly in the polls. He was down in every single poll and down by a lot, so he quit. But really what happened was the leaders of the Democrat Party, in a very undemocratic move, the bosses, they said, either you get out or we're going to throw you out using the 25th Amendment. That's what happened. You know that. So, well, you know that. That's what happens. That's what happens. These are nasty people, the Democrats, so we better beat them or we're not going to have a country left. You're not going to have a country left. So now we have a new victim to defeat, Lion Kamala Harris, Lion, L-Y-I-N apostrophe.
Trump tagging the VP as Lion Kamala Harris, a nickname that could not be seen as sexist or racist, as Speaker Johnson and other top Republicans had warned of. He called Lion Kamala Harris the worst VP in American history numerous times throughout his speech. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed Congress on Wednesday, which Vice President Harris boycotted, and the FBI Director addressed questions from the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, which I will get to in a little bit. It was carried live on Newsmax 2. Maybe you watched some of it, as was the Trump rally in Charlotte, North Carolina. I mentioned it was the first rally since Biden stepped down. It was the second public rally since coming within a quarter of an inch of being shot in the back of the head. It's still absolutely amazing and somewhat chilling. A quarter of an inch, and he would no longer be here.
And when Kamala Harris was sent to Europe to deter Russia, what a joke that was, from attacking Ukraine, how did that work out? Russia answered by launching the invasion just 5 days after she left. Putin laughed at her like she was nothing. She is nothing. She's so bad for us. Everything Kamala touches turns into a total disaster. She's destroyed San Francisco with her policies. Check out San Francisco. 20 years ago, it was the greatest city in our country. Today, it's not a livable city. She'll destroy our country if she's elected, so we won't let her be elected. We can't let that happen. Unbelievably, despite all of the damage she's caused, radical, liberal Kamala Harris now wants a promotion to deliver 4 more years of chaos. We've had the worst 4 years. You know, I say about Biden, if you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of our country, added them up, they won't have done the damage that crooked Joe Biden has done. But this November, the American people are going to tell her, no thanks, Kamala. You've done a terrible job. You've been terrible at everything you've done. You're ultra-liberal, and we don't want you here. We don't want you anywhere. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired. And yet the fake news, which a month ago said she was incompetent, said she was a stiff, just a dopey stiff, the worst. Nobody talked to her. She was firing her staff left and right. The staff hates her. Oh, wait till you see the stories that are going to come out about her staff. Oh. If that were me, they'd be all over the place. But the fake news tries to cover her up. But wait till you see. She was the worst with the staff of anybody. But the fake news is talking about lying Kamala as if she's the savior of our country. That she's so brave. I've never seen a turnaround like this. I mean, 4 weeks ago, she was the worst politician in America. Now they say, isn't it amazing? Look at her. She's so beautiful. She's so magnificent. She has a crowd of 1,000 people the other day. And the fake news, and they worked hard to get that crowd. We have crowds of 25, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people. And the fake news said, oh, her crowd was amazing. It was amazing. You see it? The other day, she had maybe 1,000 people. I doubt it. They worked their asses off to get those people to go, and I wonder what they gave out. They said, oh, this is such a big crowd. She's got such momentum. I don't think she's going to have a lot of momentum after this speech because I'm telling you about her, right? We're telling you the facts. I'm just giving you the facts.
Former President Trump speaking at a jam-packed Bojangles Coliseum in Charlotte, North Carolina, home of the Charlotte Checkers hockey team. And if you've never been to a Bojangles, I highly recommend it. Bo Rounds. Folks there in North Carolina know what I'm talking about. The facts, Trump says, and I'm going to say it again. People supporting Harris do not care about the facts, or they don't know the facts, or they don't want to know the facts. They will vote for any Democrat, anyone, over Trump, plain and simple. Like the former lieutenant governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan. Yes, he's a Republican who had endorsed Joe Biden for president. Now says he'll vote for Kamala over Trump because he just hates Trump. Who was that, Tony? Jeff Duncan, former lieutenant governor of Georgia. And you may find this surprising, but the organization Black Lives Matter is speaking out against the Democratic Party for anointing, their word, Vice President Harris as the expected Democratic presidential nominee without a public vote, and called on the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, to host a virtual snap primary ahead of the convention coming up next month. In a statement, the group said, Democratic Party elites and billionaire donors are attempting to manipulate black voters by anointing Kamala Harris and an unknown vice president as the new Democratic ticket without any primary vote by the public. This blatant disregard for democratic principles is unacceptable. And they went on to say, we do not live in a dictatorship. Delegates are not oligarchs and attempt to evade or override the will of the voters in our primary system. No matter how historic the candidate is, it must be condemned. Again, that's from Black Lives Matter. So there are a lot of people paying attention. Let's go to Newsmax host Rob Finnerty on Wake Up America with former Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland.
You have been in politics for a long time. Your reputation, you worked with the Nixon White House, of course, with the Reagan White House, and many others. And look, I'm naturally skeptical, and I'm skeptical of everything that's gone on with the Biden administration over the last 3 days. Am I alone, or do you think that there are other people out there across this great country that kind of feel the same way, that sort of feel like the books are being cooked as we speak to get Kamala Harris in through the back door of the White House come November 5th?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is old wine in new bottles, right? This is the same policies, the same people around her. She's going for the same things, right? The open border, the high inflation, the anti-Israel policies. There's nothing new about this Democrat candidate versus the previous Democrat candidate. I think the people around the country are smart enough to understand that. But what I'm worried about now is that we are in complete chaos in Washington. Who's the president? Is he going to be president next week, next month? Is he going to be president, all the way up until the election? Maybe, maybe not. Is she really the candidate? Okay, maybe she is. Maybe she isn't. If her poll numbers aren't very good, are they going to poll her too? And then what happens after the election? These are always times, these transition periods historically are times of great vulnerability for the United States because you don't know who's in charge. Other countries, our bad guys, are looking at this saying, this is our moment. This is our window of opportunity. We better strike soon, because most people think Donald Trump will be elected. And they know when Donald Trump gets elected, especially Iran, that sanctions will be reinforced. Prices of energy are going to go down. He's going to be tough against the terrorists. He's going to be pro-Israel. None of those things are what you get with the Bidens. So I'm really worried that Iran is looking at this window of opportunity closing and deciding this is the time to make their move.
You mean the window of opportunity between now and January 20th, particularly if Trump wins. Okay.
That's KT McFarland with Rob Finnerty on Wake Up America. And speaking of Iran, as I mentioned, the FBI director was questioned on Capitol Hill yesterday.
Director, when did the FBI learn that Iran was threatening President Trump's life?
So I want to be a little bit careful here, not to talk about specific classified information, but we have been for quite some time, and I'll stick with what's in the open record. We, for some time, and I in particular for some time, have been calling out the efforts by the Iranian government to attempt to retaliate for the killing of Soleimani by going after current or former prominent U.S. officials, and we've even had an indictment against it. And I think that we need to recognize the brazenness of the Iranian regime, including right here in the United States. And I expect that we're going to see more of it, and I expect there'll be more coming on that. I'm not aware of any threat information related to protectees that wasn't, passed in a timely way, but I can't really get into specifics here.
FBI Director Christopher Wray answering the question from Jim Jordan. They can never get into specifics, so I don't really know why we even have these hearings, right? At every hearing, just like on Monday with the Secret Service Director, the committee says the American people need to know. People want to know. Americans have the right to know. And every person of government that they're questioning says, I can't get into specifics. It's classified. But what I can tell you is usually something we already knew, right? The hearing was carried live on Newsmax 2, as I mentioned. But if you didn't see it, listen to this exchange between Director Wray and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz.
Were there any FBI agents or informants present at the Trump rally in Butler?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And Mr. Jordan was talking to you about Iran. Were law enforcement resources diverted from the protection of President Trump to John Bolton as a consequence of concern that Mr. Bolton might have been the target of Iranian malign efforts?
That's really a Secret Service decision. I don't know the answer to that. That's really something they would know better. What I can tell you is that there are a number of individuals. You mentioned one who we've brought a case, a specific criminal case for the Iranians targeting for assassination. But how the
are you going to get that answer to us? Whether or not resources were diverted from Trump to Bolton? Is that just going to be part of your review?
I think that's going to be part of the reviews by the Inspector General.
The Inspector General for DHS, right?
Of DHS, right. and the outside panel.
And I think that's an important point, because the Inspector General for DHS has really fallen out of favor with the administration because he's been pointing out all the problems on the border with Mayorkas and Biden, and we're always kind of worried that they're about to fire him, which would be a really bad idea. now that this role that you've identified is so critical? Be a bad idea to fire the IG for DHS during the pendency of this, right, Mr. Director?
I don't think that would be a good idea.
I'm with you on that.
That's FBI Director Christopher Wray being questioned by Congressman Matt Gaetz, who moved the conversation from the former president to the current president.
How often do you brief President Biden?
You mean on this specific
No, just general
case?
No, in your role as FBI Director.
I mean, I don't know that I could give you a number.
Is it like weekly, monthly, daily?
It's not at a regular cadence. There have been times when there have been months at a time when I haven't, and then there have been times when several days apart I have. Okay. It's always with other people.
The Vice President, is she typically there?
Often has been.
Okay, so when did you notice his decline?
In my interactions, in my role, all my interactions with the current president have been completely professional.
Right, but I mean the cognitive decline. I'm not saying he treated you unprofessionally, just maybe not picking things up as quickly as he used to.
Again, I don't meet with him very often, but what you're describing is not something that I've observed during my interactions with him.
I mean, we've had it observed so often that the ranking member and Mr. Schiff on this committee have said that he could no longer continue as a candidate. And so, since you're the FBI director, I was just sort of wondering, like, who's running the country? If something bad happened, you'd have to go brief President Biden about it right now? God forbid?
And on any number of occasions, I have briefed the president, and as I said, those briefings have all been uneventful and unremarkable.
Oh, I can imagine them being uneventful. But in the work where the vice president's also present, like you say, there's like more than half the time there's these briefings, she's there too?
I don't know if I'd said more than half the time. Certainly, there have been times where she's been present. There have been other times where she hasn't.
I take you at your word when you say this is the most complicated threat environment you've ever observed over a long career in law enforcement. And I'm just kind of wondering, with this assassination attempt, with the invasion at our border, with all the Hamas that have been let in that you've talked about and briefed about, like, is Biden up to it? And if he's not up to it, and you're a guy who's been regularly briefing him, like, who's been in on this conspiracy to hide the real Joe Biden from all of us for years? It never occurred to you that this guy wasn't up to it in all these briefings you did?
As I said, my briefings with the president have all been completely fine.
Were they between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.?
He's asked questions. There hasn't been anything of note in the area that you're talking about.
Yeah, did you ever have to brief him before 10 a.m. or after 4 p.m.? We hear those are as good hours.
I've certainly times that I have briefed have included outside those hours.
Right. Okay. I just, I think the American people want to know how we got to this point with someone who's so diminished his own party has basically put him out to pasture. And since you had close proximity and the vice president had close proximity, I'm just kind of wondering if you were being straight with all of us about how things were going with him. I guess we'll have to figure that out.
You can count on me to be straight with you, sir.
We'll see.
You can count on me to be straight with you, sir. Well, we'll see. Congressman Matt Gaetz and FBI Director Christopher Wray. The other big story from Capitol Hill is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was officially welcomed by House Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday.
Good afternoon to everyone. We are certainly happy to welcome our friend Benjamin Netanyahu, who is, of course, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel. This is a very important time. Our bipartisan congressional leadership recognized it as such and invited him here because our dear ally Israel is in an existential fight for its very existence, and that fight extends to every one of its borders. Today, the Israeli people are working to defeat Hamas following, of course, the horrific massacre on October 7th. They're having to ward off Hezbollah in the north. They're having to respond to Houthi attacks in Tel Aviv. And they fended off a historic watershed direct attack from Iran itself, a regime that is allied with Russia and China. The threats Israel faces are not only kinetic. Jerusalem is also combating lawfare and information wars and double standards from the UN and the media. Today and every day, Americans must stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel in its great struggle. In this struggle, nearly 300 days after October 7th, our hearts remain with the 120 men and women, boys and girls who are still in captivity in Gaza. Adon, Iltai, Saji, Hirsch, Gadi, Judy, Omer, Keith, and so many others are being held deep in tunnels. We have not forgotten them or their families who so desperately want them home, and we, of course, do as well. Israel and the United States are united in our mission to bring them home, and I have full confidence that we will do just that. I have to say it's providential that the Prime Minister is here today after the 17th of Tammuz. It was nearly 2,000 years ago that the most powerful nation in the ancient world laid siege to Israel and destroyed Solomon's temple. But today, the most powerful nation in the modern world is standing with our Jewish friends and the Israeli government. I'm certainly eager, as we all are, to hear from the Prime Minister, and as we hope that this 17th of Tammuz marks the last time the Jewish people lament destruction so that they can live freely and securely in their ancestral homeland. I would defer to the Prime Minister for any remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker Johnson, you have shown great leadership, along with the leaders of the Senate and the minority leader in the House. I appreciate the fact that you've invited me to address this great assembly, the world's greatest democracy. The Congress of the United States speaks for the American people, and the American people speak for the entire world. I very much value this opportunity to address this august forum. You said just now something that resonates throughout the ages. Almost 2,000 years ago, the Romans breached the walls of Jerusalem. On this day, almost 2,000 years ago. Well, our enemies will not breach our walls today. And our wall is not made up only of our own soldiers, our brave heroes, but also the friendship and alliance with the great United States of America. That is very much expressed here today. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity. And the people of Israel, thank you for giving us this opportunity to express our common alliance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
House Speaker Johnson and the Israeli Prime Minister, who is scheduled to meet with President Biden today, the Vice President, who boycotted Netanyahu's address to Congress yesterday, will not be at today's meeting either. And there was, and still is, a huge anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas riot going on in Washington, D.C. It's not a demonstration, because once it becomes violent, which it did, it is no longer a peaceful demonstration. So let's wrap it up with Bianca de la Garza on Wednesday's Newsline with New York County Executive Bruce Blakeman. This was ahead of Netanyahu's address yesterday.
It's also notable, Bruce, that Nancy Pelosi will not be meeting. Her office putting out a statement on Twitter saying that she instead will be meeting with those impacted by the hostages and the October 7th attack. She'll be meeting with private citizens from Israel. So she's another notably absent figure here. You know, all of this, as you see these protesters, they were in the rotunda just where you were yesterday. And Donald Trump will have his own meeting. And that is a very important note here when it looks like voters have to choose between a Kamala Harris or a Donald Trump candidacy.
Well, let's put it in perspective. Kamala Harris's responsibility and her duty as president of the Senate is to be at the joint meeting of the Congress. So she's supposed to be there. I can't speak for the others, but she's one that is supposed to be presiding over that affair with Speaker Johnson. And the fact that she's not there shows that she's anti-Israel, she's pro-Hamas, and she's way out of the mainstream of American political thought. She is someone who is a socialist. She's anti-capitalist. And in my view, I think she's just showing her true colors. And it's an awakening for a lot of people around America. This is the best that the Democratic Party has.
That's Nassau County, New York, County Executive Bruce Blakeman on Newsmax with Bianca de la Garza. One other now notable person who was not there at the address to Congress was Senator J.D. Vance, who missed the event due to a prior commitment. You'll hear a lot about that today, I'm sure, but Vance is not yet the VP of the United States. Kamala Harris is. On Wall Street, investors and traders are cheering a better-than-expected GDP report showing all the goods and services produced between April and June increased 2.8%. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones had been anticipating or looking for 2.1% growth. Again, it came in at 2.8%, a 1.4% increase in the first quarter. And after a big sell-off on yesterday, Wall Street is opening in the green today. Keep up with all of the news all day on Newsmax, Newsmax.com, and on Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all your favorite shows, hosts, and guests like Rob Schmidt tonight, Greg Kelly Reports, Carl Higbee, National Report, Newsline with Bianca De La Garza, Wake Up America, and more. Analysis from people like former Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, Governor Mike Huckabee, Mark Halpern, Alan Dershowitz, and many others. NewsmaxPlus.com. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Enjoy the rest of your day. Subscribe to the Newsmax Daily from whatever podcast platform you may be listening on. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.